So let's talk about Chris Hani and what happened there. Um, why particularly Chris Hani? I asked you that question earlier, but why not Nelson Mandela? Why did you not decide to go for Nelson Mandela or for Thabo Mbeki?
Okay. Chris Hani was a man who, because of his hardline approach, had the support of the radical youth. We wanted South Africa to be delivered into a state where they couldn't govern any longer. And then the security forces would have to declare martial law. They would take over, they would restore law and order, and then elections would have to be arranged. And in that election, according to all of the fundis, we would have won the election, we would have become the new government. We would, of course, have continued with the policy of several development because it was working, it was successful. Even KwaZulu-Natal, under Chief Buthelezi, was governing itself. All of the other states, although they didn't accept independence, they were governing themselves. And they were doing it gradually and very effectively. And had that been allowed to continue, we would not have had the chaos that we have today.
So you are a devout Christian and you speak about it quite openly. How do you rationalize the decision that was taken in terms of your religion?
Well, you know, we were in a state of war. Unfortunately, the security forces controlled it so well that the average man in the street had no idea. The only people who were really aware of the fact that we were at war were the relatives and friends of youngsters who were killed on the border, engaged in the war against SWAPO and the East Germans and the Cubans, and we had lots of casualties. But it was far away. In our cities and towns, things were peaceful thanks to the government. The control was thanks to the security forces. The control was good. So people didn't realize there was war. But in wartime, anything goes. And I believe that one of the big problems with Chris Hani was that as an ardent communist, he didn't believe in the Almighty God anyway. And I saw him as being part of the Antichrist.
So if you can maybe take us through the process, what happened or at what stage did you involve Janus Wallus? Because you were not the one who pulled the trigger.
No. Okay, Janus was an interesting story. You know that because there was this rift between English and Afrikaans speakers, I initiated an organization called the Sellout Foundation, which was a vehicle which we could use to get to English-speaking people, to tell them what our political policy was and how the English-speaking community fitted into it. Janus became interested and he came to a meeting of ours and became quite involved with the Sellout Foundation after that. And he used to come and visit regularly and we used to have political discussions. And when de Klerk closed the democratic route by forbidding or by banning elections at parliamentary or municipal level, it was clear that there was no longer a democratic process available. And so I, as one of the senior members of the CP, sat back and thought, now how do we stop this? Because this is going to be a takeover of our country which we must prevent. How do we do it? And I came to the conclusion that to take out somebody like Chris Hani, who had a big following amongst the radicals, who would certainly have rioted on the occasion of his death, that could render South Africa ungovernable. And that was and when I discussed this, Wallus and I used to have many discussions. And I discussed that with him and he said, well, you know, if we had to do something like that, because I suggested that we take out a high profile figure, he said he would be prepared to do the shooting.